You're listening to Plants and Politics with Gina Bonanno-Lemos. If you're ready to hear the truth about both sides of the aisle, what's really going on in America, and how big money interests prevent change to keep you sick, broke, and desperate, then play on. Everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. This is Gina. So I apparently misunderstood, or the reports were a bit wrong about the documents being released. So apparently just the two depositions are being withheld pending an appeal, but other documents were released in the Epstein and Maxwell cases, specifically Maxwell. A lot of the information is stuff that was already in the public sphere, so there isn't a ton of new stuff, but I have been reading through it. I'm over halfway through the 600 and something pages. So here's some things that I gleaned from the first half of these documents. There's mentions of Maxwell telling Virginia Giuffre to give a massage to Bill Richardson. Massage was, as Virginia Giuffre mentions, the code word for sex. She said that it always started out as a regular, normal, non-sexual massage, and then that's what it turned into. So Bill Richardson, this came out a while ago. Again, this is not new, but there may be people listening who aren't familiar with this, that haven't been paying attention to it. I have been ever since the victim came forward alleging that Donald Trump had raped her back in the 90s at Epstein's home in New York. So I have been paying an unusual amount of interest to this case. So Bill Richardson, for people who don't know, was the former U.S. ambassador to the UN. He was also Secretary of Energy from 1998 to 2000 under Bill Clinton. And he was also the Democratic governor of New Mexico from 2003 to 2011. This definitely hits on both sides of the aisle. They also asked Ms. Giuffre in her deposition, where were you and where was Ms. Maxwell when she directed you to go have sex with Marvin Minsky? So Marvin Minsky, for anybody who doesn't know, is a Harvard and Princeton educated scientist who has won numerous awards. They also said, other than Glenn Dubin, Stephen Kaufman, Prince Andrew, Jean-Luc Brunel, Bill Richardson, was there anybody else that Maxwell told you to have sex with? I looked into some of these people because their names were not names that I recognized off the top of my head. So Glenn Dubin is a billionaire who worked in the hedge fund field until just early this year. And there was speculation in articles that I saw that he retired because his ties to Epstein have now become public knowledge. So he denies that, of course, but she alleges that he was one of the men that she was ordered to give a, quote, massage to. Stephen Kaufman was a bit harder to find information on. It's more of a common name, so the only person I could find that was more high profile and well-known that may be the person was a sports agent named Stephen Kaufman, who has some clients in the NBA. I am not 100% sure that that is who they're referring to, so don't take my word for that. Giuffre was also asked about Les Wexner, who has been tied to Jeffrey Epstein. He is the owner that oversees the large conglomerate of stores that includes and I forget the name of the umbrella corporation, but under that corporation are stores like The Limited and Victoria's Secret. Also, she was asked about David Copperfield, the famous magician, and also Tommy Mottola, who is the huge music mogul who was married to Mariah Carey. So not sure At least I haven't gotten to any information yet about why she was asked about them, but for some reason they've been pulled into this. Now, she was also asked who she saw on Epstein's plane. Now, these names I'm going to list off. She did not, I'm going to make this clear up front, she did not in any way indicate that any of these people did anything wrong, that they took part in any illegal activity or sex with young women. They were just on Epstein's plane, and she saw them and apparently met them at one point in time or multiple times in some cases. So Naomi Campbell, Heidi Klum, Bill Clinton, who she also saw on the island. So this is kind of big news because this is in direct conflict to what he has said. Bill Clinton claims that he has never been on Epstein's island, which makes you question if he's lying about being on the island, because she's now the second person to place him on the island. So there was somebody else that they deposed who worked for Epstein. He said that he saw Bill Clinton on the island. Now, to be clear, neither of them claim to have seen Bill Clinton taking part in any sexual activity with young girls, but they did see him there on the island, and he has flown on Jeffrey Epstein's plane, or he did fly on Jeffrey Epstein's plane multiple times. Also on the plane was Al Gore. She said she saw various models. Matt Groening, who was the creator of The Simpsons, Jacques Cousteau's granddaughter, various interior designers, architects, and politicians. So Giuffre was allegedly forced to have sex with some of the men I already mentioned, also Prince Andrew, which is common knowledge in the public sphere. She's talked about that. There have been numerous reports. She was forced to have sex with Ghislaine Maxwell herself. Jean-Luc Brunel, who is was basically cited as a model scout for various modeling agencies. And then Alan Dershowitz, who, of course, has become kind of a TV celebrity attorney. Now, Alan Dershowitz, this is one of the reasons that Giuffre brought a defamation suit, was because Alan Dershowitz is calling her a liar. Well, Alan Dershowitz was, oddly enough, no coincidence, was one of the attorneys who got Epstein that sweetheart deal in 2008, where he basically got a slap on the wrist and 13 months on prison work release, essentially, to where he didn't really have to serve time in prison. He was in the jail at night, 6 nights out of the week, and then was only really in prison one full day and night. So I believe on Sunday, he was there all day and night. But other than that, he was allowed to leave every single day to go to his office. And they, of course, for anybody listening who doesn't know, this sweetheart deal was given to him by Alex Acosta, who was Trump's labor secretary until last year. But on the defendant side, on Epstein's side, it was Alan Dershowitz was one of his legal counsel. So if Virginia Giuffre's allegations are true and correct, it would mean that Alan Dershowitz was literally arguing on his own behalf. He was acting as his own attorney in some ways and crafting a deal that would benefit himself, because part of the deal that Epstein was given in 2008 was that none of his co-conspirators, none of the men who had taken part in the trafficking of these young girls would be looked at, would have charges brought against them, that basically it would just be dropped. They would all get a walk. So if that's true, Dershowitz essentially was crafting this deal to protect himself. Dershowitz, just to be fair, has denied all of the allegations. He has come forward and admitted that, yeah, I went to Epstein's and I did have a massage, but I kept my underwear on. So that's as far as he'll go in his admission. Of note, now this name was not mentioned in any of the documents so far, but another person who was one of Epstein's legal counsel is another famous name. Ken Starr. The coincidences abound because if you remember correctly, just last year and into the first part of this year, Donald Trump was under investigation and he went through an impeachment. Two of his attorneys that represented him in that impeachment were Alan Dershowitz and Ken Starr. And then, of course, Ken Starr was the attorney who went after Bill Clinton with the whole Monica Lewinsky issue. So, gosh, I don't know. There's just so much overlap here. It's whatever it all means. Eventually, hopefully, we'll get this ball of yarn pulled apart and figure it all out. But in various parts of these documents, parts are blacked out and like whole pages are blacked out and names are still blacked out in many areas. But it does reference one of Epstein's closest friends, quote, closest friends and traveling companions, which is this Jean-Luc Brunel. This guy, oh my gosh, special place in hell for this guy. So as I mentioned, he's a model scout or was a model scout for numerous modeling agencies. And Epstein forced, according to Virginia Giuffre, forced Virginia to have sex with him. And this guy apparently was able to get passports for young girls, U.S. passports for young girls to work as, quote, models. So this is how they got them, were able to help them travel. They were able to, get them on board planes and take them all over the world to be abused by all of these pedophiles. So Jean-Luc Brunel, according to these documents, brought young girls as young as 12 years old to the U.S. for, quote, sexual purposes and would, quote, farm them out to his friends, especially Epstein. It says in here, quote, Epstein forced Jane Doe 3, which is Virginia Giuffre, to observe him, Jean-Luc Brunel, and Maxwell engage in illegal sexual acts with dozens of underage girls. So she was forced to watch them sexually assault other young girls as young as 12 years old. Think about that, guys. 12 years old. That's like a sixth grader. That's an elementary school student. That is so repugnant. I just don't even have words. God, this is sick. Okay, I'm gonna. Sorry, you think of your own kids, and how little that is. I mean, I have a niece that age. So it also says, quote, Epstein also trafficked Jane Doe 3, which again is Virginia Giuffre, for sexual purposes to many other powerful men, including numerous prominent American politicians, powerful business executives, foreign presidents, and also a well-known prime minister and other world leaders. Of note, in conversations she was having with her own attorneys, there's this line of questioning. So they asked her, did Jeffrey ever brag to you about the age of any of the girls with whom he had relationships? And she said, quote, yes, he did. He did all the time. The worst on that I heard from his own mouth was this pretty 12-year-old girls. So it sounded like she was saying one girl, and then she said girls. He had flown in for his birthday. It was a surprise birthday gift from one of his friends, and they were from France. I did see them. I did meet them. Jeffrey bragged afterwards, after he met them, that they were 12-year-olds flown over from France because they're really poor over there, and their parents needed the money or whatever the case is, and they were absolutely free to stay and flew out. Those were the worst ones. He was constantly bragging about girls' ages or where he got them from or their past and how terrible their past was and how good he is making it for them. A little further down, her attorney asks, and were they flown in on Jeff's private plane or did they get transported? And she answered, no, they were transported by somebody else. So it's clear from her statement or statements that the crew of Epstein's plane had to have known what was going on, right? But it's also clear that there are other people out there involved in this. This was not just Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. There are other people out there trafficking these young girls, taking advantage of situations of poverty, taking advantage of families who think that they're helping their children and who are so desperate. If ever there was a case for helping to lift people out of poverty across the world, I think this is the number one case. So when asked about people of power and influence owing Epstein favors, Virginia Giuffre said, yeah, lots of people owed him favors. From what he told me, he's got everybody in his pocket. She also mentioned that after news broke of Epstein's legal issues in 2007, so this was when everything was bubbling to the surface, and this was right before he was given this sweetheart deal by Alex Acosta, Epstein's attorneys and Epstein himself contacted her, and they told her that they were trying to discredit some of the other victims who had come forward. So here's a direct quote. He was discrediting lots of these girls and making them out to be drug addicts and prostitutes and what have you, so they wouldn't be looked upon as worthy in the court's eyes. So keep in mind the podcast I recently did about how a witness came forward and is claiming that Ghislaine Maxwell hired the far-right shit stirrer Jacob Wall to try and discredit her alleged victims. So she's using Epstein's exact playbook. And she told her attorneys that her relationship ended with Epstein after about 4 years, and after he made her a proposition that scared her. So this was really, oh my gosh, this was so scary, so creepy. Essentially, Epstein proposed to her that she give him a child, that she bear his child, and in return, he would supply her with a mansion and he would give her money every month. However, the child would be his and Ghislaine Maxwell's. So I don't know the deal with that. I don't know if Ghislaine Maxwell can't have children. I don't know if Epstein couldn't have. I don't know what the deal is. I mean, obviously Epstein could have children if she was going to bear his child. But in any case, they wanted Virginia Giuffre to take care of the child unless there was a falling out between her and Epstein. But the child would be his and Maxwell's. I mean, oh my God. Can you imagine giving these two monsters a child to raise? Oh my God. So here's my takeaways from what I've read so far. He essentially made these young girls co-conspirators because Virginia Giuffre talks in there a bit about how he and Maxwell taught the girls how to go out and round up new girls. So there was constantly this parade of new young girls coming in, and how they would send them out to bars and nightclubs, and they would go up, approach they had to be young, they had to be pretty, they couldn't be Black, they could be any other ethnicity, but if they were anything other than white, they had to be exotic looking and really beautiful. And they would go up, they taught them to go up and talk to them about modeling and acting and how they knew people with connections, and, oh, they would really love you, why don't you come back to their place and talk about it? So it's so gross. So he made these young girls not only the victims of pedophilia, but he made them essentially like pimps too. And again, one of my takeaways is that poverty leads to desperation. And then it can lead to just an untold amount of damage and destruction. I mean, these lives were ruined in more ways than we can even fathom. These girls were so little. They were truly little girls. And then greed, it's such an element of evil. It really is. look at how many people knew about this, from his employees, the people who flew his planes. And, Virginia Giuffre said they had to have known. They were told, the pilots, according to Giuffre, they were told to come out of the cockpit as little as possible and that they needed to knock first. But as she said, it didn't take basically a rocket scientist to know you've got this older guy flying on a plane with scantily clad young girls, some very young, children, literally children, and he was getting massages all the time. These people knew what was going on. And if they didn't know for sure, they damn well suspected it, and they said nothing. They said nothing for decades. It's beyond comprehension, the mental gymnastics that people have to go through, twist themselves into pretzels to justify this. What, for a job? For money? Really? Really? I mean, I have to question, who are these people? What freaking morals do they have? Do they have any? Would they care if it was their own child even? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And then finally, I'll say this. What's clear from what Epstein said to Virginia Giuffre and comments that Maxwell made, these pedophiles, on some level, they believe that what they're doing is okay. They even believe, from the words of Epstein, that they're helping these girls. They look at these girls as, they're desperate and they're broke and some of them were doing drugs and living on the street. And so they actually believe that what they did was help these girls. And this is so common. If you see any shows or you know anybody who's been victimized and you hear statements made by pedophiles, they actually think that what they're doing is like enjoyable, like the victim really enjoyed it. And it's twisted because, sex feels good. So these victims have such shame about it because, they feel shameful that it did feel good, but it doesn't make it right. And then on some level, that these pedophiles know that what they're doing is wrong, because if they didn't, they wouldn't conceal it. They wouldn't try to hide it. They wouldn't go to the lengths that they go to if they didn't, on some level, in some way, shape, or form, like if they were truly just sociopathic. I believe, I'm not a psychologist, but it seems that they just really wouldn't understand right and wrong. They wouldn't know that what they were doing was wrong in any way. So they know because they're covering it up. It's just so disturbing on so many levels. I'm going to keep reading it though, guys. I will come back and report on the rest of it as I understand it, just from little news clips that I've seen. There are, and I've read some, but they weren't really as explosive as what the media is making it out. There were some emails back and forth between Epstein and Maxwell that basically he was trying to help her out and, give her excuses and talking points for the media, and of course throwing out there all kinds of legal terms to try to scare people away, make it sound like they're going to be sued for defamation if they keep going down this road. So nothing really all that eye-opening or new. So, but I will keep reading. I will let you guys know what the last half of it has to say, but I wanted to get this information to you as soon as possible. All right. As always, like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care. Thanks for listening to Plants and Politics. The only way we can take our country and power back is to spread the truth and build an army. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks again.